Curlfriends, and welcome to another episode of FNHROCKS, and I'm your curl-friendly lawyer, Lavina. Apologies for the late upload. As you guys know, this is Curl Chat Wednesday. However, due to just life circumstances, and you know how things can kind of get sometimes, but thank you for bearing with me. Let's just jump on into this. We've actually got a really special guest. Her name is Nojood, and she's actually a social media influencer in the natural hair space, the fine natural hair space at that. And she's here on Curl Chat Wednesday to discuss exactly what it's like to not only be a fine natural hair lista in South Africa, but also about the apartheid situation, about colorism, and even about the ways in which your natural hair regimen might change depending on your climate. So this is an interview that you do not want to miss, especially if you're into natural hair, and more specifically, if you've even got fine hair. This is the interview for you. Before we jump on into that interview, definitely go ahead and click the little subscribe button down there, and also hit up the notification bell as well too, so that you never ever miss another video. All right, let's go. Nojood, thank you so much for coming to FNHROCKS. As you know, it's Curl Chat Wednesday, and the Curlfriends are just dying to know exactly what it's like to, number one, be natural in South Africa, and number two, actually have an entire vlog, social media persona. So I'll just let you, tell us about yourself, Nojood.
All right. Okay. Hi, Lavina. Thanks so much for having me on your Curl Chats. I hardly ever catch it when it's supposed to happen because of our time zones. But yes, thank you for meeting me at 7:30, well, 7:44 my time, and
it's 1:44 our time. I'm in Canada for the Curlfriends. They obviously know that, but yeah, 7:44. That's a 7-hour difference. No, my math is off.
No, 6 hours.
6-hour difference. Oh my goodness. Hence why we could only do it this way as a pre-record, right? What's it like being natural in South Africa?
So it's actually pretty interesting. It's a journey because South Africa has quite an interesting history in that we have a racially segregated history, and there were people who were classified as colored because they were mixed race, or they had, I don't know, some of them were, for instance, slaves from Mozambique. And they decided, no, but we can't put these together with the Black South Africans because they are Bantus. So we're going to call these people colored, So there's this community of colored people and there's this community of Black people, which for me, I just see everything fits under the umbrella of Black, and colored is a type of Black, but it's not the same. I don't share the same views as a lot of people. And yeah, I know in the United States and Canada and all that, it's quite an issue to say colored, but in South Africa, it's actually a racial classification that exists.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now the colored people are usually people of mixed descent, and they have looser curl patterns, and some don't, some literally look just like me. And some, and because of that, we've had an interesting adoption of the natural hair movement in South Africa, because there are people who, are so ashamed of embracing the parts of themselves that make themselves African, to go out as, for instance, a colored person with hair that is not straight. I remember when I was younger, there were people who would deny relaxing their hair because they wanted people to believe that their hair was naturally straight. That's how bad it is, that people wanted to escape their Blackness.
So,
and
Nojood, I guess, I don't know, I hope I'm not only speaking for myself, but perhaps some of the Curlfriends. I mean, the Curlfriends are largely, the Curlfriend crew is largely from, America, Canada. We're in the Americas, so to speak. And so I am a little bit confused. So if you can perhaps educate us a little bit about the difference between colored people and Black people. For me, here in Canada, here in America, it's pretty much the same thing. Colored is a derogatory way to say Black, right? And so what is the difference in terms of in South Africa?
Yeah, so in South Africa, the difference is, well, I don't really see a difference today, but there are people who believe in this difference because of the apartheid system that existed all those years ago. And what had happened then is they created all these different types of distinctions of people of color. So you'd get Cape Malay, you would get Cape colored, you would get other colored, and then you would get Bantu. And Bantu would be what everybody else looks at and sees, the wider nose people with,
Dark skin.
coarse hair and, dark skin. And
Right.
the Cape Malay people would be people who had ancestral roots or ancestral ties to Malaysia, because there were some slaves that were brought over, or people who were made into slaves that came from Malaysia, Bangladesh, all those
Right.
areas. And there's Cape Colored, which is a mixture of, for instance, the Khoi, which were the hunter-gatherers that lived in South Africa, the nomadic people, as well, who were the San. So all these mixtures created what becomes the Cape Colored, which is also derived or from, I guess, a mixture between a white person and a black person, and then there's other colored, which is coloreds from all over South Africa, where they just have mixed ancestry. And they did this so that, I think it's the same kind of concept that happened in the Caribbean, where they would have the light-skinned slaves and the dark-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves would get treated better, but like not like humans, but they would get treated better
A little
than the
bit
dark.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then obviously
Gross.
that breeds hate between the two groups,
Of
because
course.
the darker one's like, why does the lighter one get all the good stuff? And that's why we have what we have here in South Africa today. It's tough. Some colored people are comfortable to identify as black, and some colored people are not.
So
Yeah.
what does that translate like for hair? Because here in the Americas, what we see in a lot of our movies and a lot of our pop culture media, even in the workplace, not as much, but a little, yes, in the workplace as well too, is a glorification of looser textures, a glorification of like that thick, loopy, curly look, kind of similar to like this weave I'm wearing right now, right?
Yes.
What does that mean for like someone who is considered black and has like predominantly like type 4 hair, perhaps is fine, coily? It is nothing like, the colored people's look, so to speak. Like, what does that look like in South Africa for somebody who is not the mainstream colored?
Yeah, so that's the
version of
thing,
beauty?
right? I think it's such an interesting situation to be in South Africa, because right now there's obviously a wave of appreciating the darker skinned people with the more coarse hair, and
Right.
there's also, but it's new, and because it's new, it doesn't feel normal. And I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not using normal in to say that it's right,
For
but
sure.
it doesn't feel like something we're used to. And a lot of dark-skinned people have self-hate because they just think they should be lighter. There's bleaching issues that we have here. People bleach their hair, their faces and skins, and do all sorts of things. And it's because it is like it's idolized to be light-skinned. It's idolized to have this looser hair texture. And even in the movies, even within the colored community, there are people who, like I said, they deny relaxing their hair because they want people to believe that their hair is naturally loose, and there are people who go natural in the natural hair community, who in the colored community, and they get mocked, they get chastised, they get called all sorts of names,
Awful.
And people are starting to reclaim some of these slurs. Like, for instance, in Cape Town, there's bosikop. If someone calls you a bosikop, they're basically saying that your hair is so bushy that you look like you're carrying a bush on your head.
Wow, that is so disrespectful.
Right?
Oh my gosh, like that is it's disrespectful, it's dehumanizing, it's derogatory. Like that to me puts like a serious axe in the entire natural hair movement as we know it, right? Like how do you navigate that? Because you're proud of your curls and your coils. Like I see you in Instagram, you're killing it, you're posting gorgeous pictures, and you have wonderful like captions. Like I don't know if you're still posting those, but you just really put the information out there on how to take care of natural hair properly. So like how does that make you feel as like somebody who, like, your hair grows out of your scalp like that? Mine does. Like what? You know what I mean?
It's just one of those things, because sometimes it's people in your own family that will say, like they'll see you detangling your hair and say, wow, it's so long. When are you going to make it straight?
Wow.
And then it's like, no, actually, if I want it straight, I'll get a wig because I'm not about heat damage.
Yeah. I like that. I'm not about heat damage.
Yeah, no,
I love your voice.
You have that beautiful South African accent. Like, I'm sure to you, you don't have an accent, but being like in the Americas or Canadian, like it's beautiful. Your
Oh
voice
wow,
is very
okay.
nice. Yeah.
No, no, I think I have various accents even. So even this is it's probably like my business accent or something.
That's so
But
funny. So that's interesting what you're saying though about the business accent, because like even here in Canada, there's a certain corp speak, right? A corporate
mm,
speak that you kind of put on a different voice when you're in professional settings, and then obviously when you're with your friends or family or whatever, there's something different.
mhm,
Given that you're in South Africa is a predominantly black country. Does the same
yes,
thing exist in South Africa?
indeed, it does.
Wow.
Although Black people make up the majority of South Africa, most of the companies are owned either by white people or they are white spaces. So we go in there and we assimilate. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, I don't know, it just sounds like, or it looks like, if you sound businessy or if you
Mhm.
sound the way I do, people are
Mhm.
less likely to question the things that you have to say.
Yep.
So
Yep.
some people, despite having a different accent at home, would put it on just to appear confident or anything like that. I guess that's the Black experience.
Worldwide it seems, because here
Yeah.
in the Americas, the way we see it is like, okay, well, I'm here, I'm dealing with this European Eurocentric society, and if I go back to say Africa, where my ancestors are from, the continent, whether it's South Africa or Nigeria or wherever, right? um, something will somehow some way be different. Like what do you think of that, like in terms of like what you understand the situation to be here in the Americas versus like in South Africa?
Well, they certainly won't get killed by cops.
Well, that's nice. It's nice to live. Yay. This world is so
Yeah,
ridiculous. Like, yeah, well, that's
yeah.
comforting.
So I mean, that's one comfort I can provide, and there's also a likelihood of people kind of being so fascinated with this American or Canadian person. There's that.
Hmm.
People like new things. I think that's just it's human
Yeah,
nature.
yeah,
And there's also, I mean, we have high levels of crime in South Africa. So if you are going to be a victim, you're going to be killed by someone who looks like you. I don't know if that makes it comfortable or comforting, but um, that's unfortunately a product of poverty and inequality and all sorts of weird things. So it comes with the territory, and I'm hoping that it does get better, although with COVID, things are looking a little bit bleak.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's how we are here in South Africa. If we had to come across an American person, it would probably take a while,
Yeah,
and there's so many people here. This is the weird thing, blacks and coloreds alike,
yeah.
who will try to emulate an American accent for no reason. So you'll get rappers in South Africa that rap like Americans, and you say,
Really?
yeah, yeah, they rap like Americans and speak like Americans, and you just
Right.
hear this South African person who keeps going, yeah, yeah, nah, me, nah, saying.
Oh goodness! Wow. Well, you know what? The world is Americanized. It's not
Mm,
Canadianized. It's Americanized.
yeah.
And as much as Canada is quote unquote part of the North American continent and part of the Americas, so to speak. I like to think there are some differences, like between
Yeah,
Americans and Canadians, but
yeah. And you
you
guys
do
have
see
French
that.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
You guys have French people, or like,
Yes.
yeah.
Oui. C'est ça. Do they speak
Oh,
French
so
in?
oh yeah, no, no, no. There's no French. Well, there's French in schools, but I do not speak French.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, my
Yeah.
French is not good, but I do understand it. So I would say that I have an intermediate level of French that I actively pursued myself.
Mm,
In Canada, it's largely English speaking, but we do,
yeah.
of course, have Quebec, and we do, of course, have, it's constitutionalized that we are a bilingual country, English and French.
Mhm,
And so, for that reason, it just makes sense, like as a lawyer, and like my husband's
mm.
actually he speaks French. He's Haitian, so he speaks Creole, French, and
Oh, that
English.
is so intriguing.
Yeah, he's
So what
trilingual, so
what is Creole? Like I find it so interesting
yeah.
because in South Africa, Afrikaans is
Hmm.
actually Creole. It's African Creole, which was a language created by the people who were enslaved. Um, as it was a mixture of Dutch, Malay,
Hmm.
Indonesian,
Hmm.
like Khoi words, Bantu words. It's just a mixture of everything, you know. But unfortunately, it was appropriated, and the history around it made it such that it seemed like it didn't belong to people of color, and it's a whole mess there. But I guess it's something to unpack at another time, and hopefully we'll get there as a nation. So I'm quite interested in what is Creole, because you know I hear that and I'm like, okay, they say Beyonce is Creole, or you know,
Yeah.
does it just mean mixed anything?
You know, I had the same kind of questions myself. And then, especially last summer, we went to New Orleans, Louisiana for Essence Fest. And so there was a lot of like talk of Creole, like Creole food and Creole, people and stuff like that. And I think my understanding of Creole, and perhaps somebody in the Creole chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't fully understand it, but I think it has to do with being mixed with some form of French. So like that mixture of like Anglophone and Francophone, and like it blending together and fusing into its own type of culture. Because Haitians, they speak Creole, the language Creole, which is a combination of course, African language, like historical like mixture of African languages, and then there's some French, and then there's some English. But then people from Saint Lucia, which is another French island, they speak Creole too, and they're different forms of Creole, but they can understand each other. So I
Oh,
don't know how that works. Yeah, it's very bizarre. They're not
it is.
close islands to each other either. Like, I mean, they're
Yeah.
both in the Caribbean, but one is on one side of the
One is on the other.
and on the other. So I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, that is so
But
intriguing.
it is. It really is. And I think I would even say that, actually, no, I was gonna say that maybe some people understand each other in Louisiana as well, but I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe the Haitians can correct me because they know that history a lot stronger than I do. But yeah, Creole is a fantastic language. I'm trying to learn it myself. I actually have a book somewhere around here that has like some language. Like it's an interesting language because the way it's written and the way it sounds, if you're not like if you're not from that culture, you don't understand it from birth, it won't make sense to you. So that's what I find for myself. But no, that's beautiful. So what languages are spoken in South Africa?
Sure, there are how many? Like 11
Oh,
official
wow.
languages? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Afrikaans,
Yeah.
there's English, there is Sesotho, there is Setswana, there is isiZulu, there is isiNdebele. I think it's isiNdebele or Indebele. I might be wrong there. There's isiXhosa, the Click language, the one, I don't know if you know Miriam Makeba.
I've heard of Click.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
Click song, yes. She spoke that, I think. And wait, what else is there? Is Swati? Oh my goodness, what kind of a South African? I mentioned English. What didn't I mention? English, Sisotho, Venda, Venda, and Tsonga.
Oh my gosh.
And is the 11th one sign language? I think sign language is included in there. If it isn't, I don't know, I might have missed one. I hope that I don't get hate for that. Because then I'd have to Google it. I used to know the stuff well when I was in primary school, but now I don't really know it so well.
Right. But like, how do people interact with each other with having so many fluid languages at once? Like, are those all official languages? That's amazing.
Yeah, they're all official languages.
Oh my
so
goodness.
You can watch news in any of those languages if you feel like it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And we have national TV channels that allow people to view content in their home language, although Zulu is more common.
Right.
Oh, my husband decided to help me out with the Google thing.
The Curlfriends thanks you.
So yeah. So it's Ndebele, Swati, Northern Sotho, Tsonga, Tswana, Southern Sotho, Afrikaans, Zulu, Xhosa, and Venda.
Wow, that's amazing. That sounds absolutely beautiful. Very beautiful.
A lot. Yeah, and ironically, a lot of people who are Black can speak lots of languages at the same time, and it's mostly because some of them came from townships where they were exposed to all the languages at the same time. So you would hear people speaking Zulu to one person, turn around and speak Sotho to the next, and then speak Afrikaans to someone else. And so most South Africans are multilingual and not just bilingual, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. So like what language, I guess like when you're in corporate, it's English then, right? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and
I figured so.
People feel comfortable to speak Afrikaans, but that's, I think, because of historical
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I actually wanted to ask you, you know how it gets really cold in Canada, -40.
Yes.
How does that work for your hair? You know, like I kept seeing on Naturally
Yeah.
Curly when I went natural. That was my main resource to
Mm-hmm.
understand my hair because I was like, you know, I like science and I want to understand. I mostly search for science to understand my hair because I feel like anecdotes are cool and everything,
Yeah.
but ultimately I just want to be sure that I'm doing the right thing. And it
Right.
would mention how in winter you have to change your routine. And in South Africa, yes, to change your routine in winter is because it gets dry, you
Oh,
know.
I see.
But now when you are in Canada and it's snowing, what does that mean for your hair? Does your hair get dry because of the snow, or does it freeze and break off? What happens?
Yeah, no, for sure. Those are fantastic questions. And you know what? You're very close to the answer. Here in Canada, when it gets cold, the hair gets extremely dry. Exactly what you were just mentioning. So dry to the point where it can break off. And so
Mm,
your regimen will have to change very dramatically. So for
mm,
example, in the summertime right now, I'm actually going through overhydration because I didn't tweak my regimen properly, because in the
mm,
summertime you just don't need as much moisture because there's just naturally more humidity and more moisture in the air, especially when you're battling like almost 40 degrees Celsius weather. And so
mm,
whereas my regimen in the winter time might have been something like a leave-in conditioner, and then a cream, and then an oil, and then if it's really cold, then a butter. But chances are not I wouldn't layer 4 products because we do have fine natural hair.
mm,
In the summertime, you might just be okay with like a leave-in and a cream, or like a leave-in and an oil. Like you really don't need so many products. And so it does get really, really dry, and then it just
mm.
breaks off. So what a lot of naturals will find happens to their hair is that like it just has no elasticity and it's just
Mm.
breaking. So,
Wow.
whereas in the summertime, like if you're over conditioning your hair, which is essentially what happened to me, what happens is your hair is just stretch, 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 and then it would just break
Mm.
off.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So neither is a good situation because I mean nobody wants breakage, but yeah, like it's pretty much essentially the same thing except way more extreme. So
Okay.
like we really need the shea butter, we really need any butter really, like mango
Mm,
butter, avocado, but whatever butter you can find, like those really do help, like thicker
yeah.
products in the winter time that is really going to stick to the hair, and even applying it more regularly. So like in the
Mm,
winter time I might apply my products twice for the day,
mm,
once in the morning, once at night. But in the summertime, which I've learned the hard way, but I've learned, is that I pretty much only need it like in the morning and that's it, and maybe
oh,
the
that
next
is
day. Like
interesting.
it's not necessary to do it at night again.
But that makes sense because I went to Zanzibar for my honeymoon and like
Hmm.
my hair was just flourishing. Like it didn't need stuff because it was
Yeah.
so humid there. I
Yeah.
just went there with rose water and I sprayed my hair with rose water every other day and it just bounced and it curled. It did whatever it needed to do. I didn't need to do anything to it. And I'm like, that's amazing. I wish I could just package Zanzibar and put it in my
Right?
like a helmet and then carry it on my head.
I love that. That is so cute. Can you imagine Zanzibar in a bottle?
Yeah, I've got a Zanzibar helmet. Like, how do you condition with my Zanzibar helmet?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you know what? And I love that you brought it back to hair because like we of course have to talk hair, and like, you know, it's so important not to follow the same regimens that like one natural is doing depending on her like temperature and like, wherever she is in the world. Like it makes a huge difference. So
Mm.
like what does your regimen look like? Because I'm sure it's different than mine for sure, or even one of the girlfriends that are watching this.
Yeah, so I had a very interesting time with my hair very recently because I thought, okay, um, I've got fine hair, so I need to use protein deep conditioners very often, you know.
Right.
And then I did that. And then I used henna. And then I used Olaplex. And then I was using so many things because I thought my fine hair needed to be strong, you know.
Of course.
But the thing is, fine hair also requires moisture to be strong. You know,
Yep.
just using hydrating deep conditioners that don't have proteins can help to strengthen your hair and give it that hydration that it needs to be able to be resilient. Because we want our hair to be resilient and stretch and pull back. But protein is a natural building block of the hair. You just need to touch it up every now and then. Like that's how I feel now. I used to be more protein and moisture every now and then, you know.
Yeah.
Um, And it's because when you go into the market, all these conditioners have protein, like
Protein.
all of them. There are so many that just have protein. There are
Right.
very few that are protein free. And with the launch of As I Am Naturally, we were able to get hydration elation that has no protein. With Mayel Organics, we were able to get the rosemary and mint deep conditioner that doesn't have any proteins. And fortunately, there are also South African brands that are sprouting up that don't have silicones, because I can't do silicones, and they also don't have proteins. So I'm just like, wow, finally I'm being catered to. But
Yeah.
7 years ago it was terrible. I was trying to mix things and failing. I was using shea butter, I was doing all sorts of weird things. But anyway, to get back to the question about my regimen, I realized that I just needed to make a couple of changes. So for the past couple of weeks, I've actually just been using shampoo and deep conditioning with a protein-free deep conditioner, just to get my hair to that point where the layer of that protein, because it builds up on your hair, as much as
Yes, it
people don't
does.
know this, it builds up on your hair, and you just need to gradually just wash it off. And I've been hydrating my hair, so I'm currently in a hydrating phase.
Yeah.
And once that is over, I'll start going into my maintenance phase, which goes about more hydration. So maybe 3 weeks hydration, 1 week protein. And then I'll
Right.
see how that goes. I'm learning to actually listen to my hair, because sometimes having this strict regimen, it's cool and everything to allow you to mindlessly doing it, but I think it's good to be mindful when you're taking care of your hair, just to see, okay, but my hair didn't feel like this when I detangled it last time. I'm feeling more split ends closer to my scalp. These types of things. So
Right.
that's the type of relationship that I'm trying to have with my hair, that I hope that other people have with their hair, because most times when people want tips, they want quick fixes, but like, you have to commit, man.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, Nojood, I find it so interesting that you talk about the fact that, like, in South Africa, you're seeing all of these products that are like protein rich. And to
Mm,
me, like, I'm always thinking like, okay, why is this happening?
mm,
What is the analysis of it? What was the logic of that? Because obviously
mm,
there's a demand for these protein rich
mm,
products. And I
mm,
think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just, trying to understand here, but I think it probably has something to do with the fact that you are in a climate that is moisture rich, and that you're not really having an issue with finding moisture. It's probably more of an issue with finding structure. And so,
mm,
like, here in Canada, it's funny because it's the exact opposite. Like, you see a lot of
mm,
products with moisture this, moisture that, hydration this, hydration that. And so you're always in a stage where you think you need hydration. I mean, I will agree with you. There was something that you said, and it really stuck out to me, that when you are protein overloaded, because I went through that as well too, thinking like, I got fine here, I need like a bunch of protein to, build. And then it just got hard, and it would, like,
mm.
you would touch it and it would break off, like, and not
Wow,
stretch, it
that's
would just
terrible.
break. And so I learned the hard way that that was protein overload.
Mm.
But all that to say, it's very difficult. Like, how long did it take you to or is it taking you to kind of reverse that protein overload that you feel like you're experiencing?
I think that I'm pretty much there. Like, I started trying to reduce this protein situation around April, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously I wash my hair once a week, and then with lockdown there were times I was like, meh, and then I skipped a week, and so
No, for sure. Makes sense.
yeah, so because of that, I think I'm pretty much there. I did my first protein deep conditioner this weekend, and my hair feels normal.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it's going to be a while again until I do it. So I think if I had to measure it, I would say at least 4 or 6 wash
Yeah.
cycles to just get rid of that buildup. Because if it's henna, it's also that thing that you've got to get rid of, because henna
Right.
also deposits on your hair and forms a barrier,
Yeah.
well, not necessarily a barrier, but it can cause dryness over time if you overdo it, because it builds up on your hair, it builds
Yeah.
up on itself. And I think it's something that we need to also highlight in the natural community, especially in the fine natural community, because people think that I have fine hair and I need to fortify it, I need to thicken it, I need to do all sorts of
Yeah.
these things. Like, why can't we just accept our fine natural hair as it is, and just
Yeah.
treat it the way it needs to be treated, so it can be the best version of itself?
I love that. I love that. And you know what? I think that that's like where you start to flourish, because the point, like I've been natural since 2009, and for the longest period, the majority of it, only up until the last 2 years, have I said to myself, okay, it's fine, it's natural, it's type 4, it's fragile, you gotta learn how to leave it alone. And so and not always be trying to fix it. Like there's nothing to fix, it's just that is naturally what it is. We cannot thicken our strands, it's just naturally fine. And so I think that's really interesting what you said, because given that you are in a moisture rich environment, I would imagine that it would take you a little bit less time to like fix a protein overload situation. Because here in Canada, my protein overload took me like a year to fix. Like,
what?
Yeah, it took a really long time. It took snipping it off. It took doing tons of deep conditioning treatments. And then I got so comfortable doing that I kept on doing that. And then now I'm in a situation where it's moisture overloaded.
The opposite.
But now that's been easy to fix. So like I literally did like an AFO-G treatment last Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah, last Tuesday I did an AFO-G treatment, and like literally my hair feels like it's almost back to normal. Like it was just so quick to fix it with the protein overload, or sorry, the moisture issue. Yeah, but I think that's the climate, right?
Yeah, I never considered that, because what I thought, because I mean, in South Africa, the moisture levels in the air are not consistent across. So you can go to Cape Town and find humidity because it's a coastal area. So in the inland or inland areas, you don't get so much humidity. I stay in Johannesburg. Well, I don't stay in Joburg anymore. I stay in Pretoria, and it's pretty dry. You know, it's dry in winter, it's dry in summer. It's just always dry, you know, and sometimes we get hair reps, right? I remember going to an event, and this hair rep came and said all this stuff like, yeah, South African people have naturally low porosity hair. Everyone in South Africa is born with low porosity hair. And I'm like, is that the case? Really? You know?
Wait, what's a hair rip? I've never heard of a hair rip.
Like a hair products representative that comes
from...
a
hair rep. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
Me and my Canadian airs, I'm like, hair rip, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah. I just remembered a chat I had with my friend who was talking about the American accent, and I'm like, this is one thing I don't get with, I know you're not American, but with the American accent, it's caramel. Why is it caramel? There is an A after the R.
You know what? It's a funny little thing, Americans and Canadians, because I think that as a South African and Canadians, we probably pronounce things the exact same, and Americans just do it the American way. Like, even though there's just a border switching us, like they just do everything differently. Like we'll say, you know, like for example, pop, like a fizzy drink, we call it pop, they would call it soda. Like I don't know what South Africans would call it, but
so many things.
Yeah, like
people even call a Fanta a Coke. Like I just
so they're just giving everything their own brands, anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, there was a time where there was a brand for nail polish called Q-Tex. Every single nail polish was referred to as Q-Tex. Do you have Q-Tex? You know, the thing would be written Revlon, and there you have putting it on your fingernails because it's Q-Tex, because that's what we see in the media. It says Q-Tex over there. It's Q-Tex, man.
Wow, that's amazing. I do want to come visit South Africa. It sounds gorgeous.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. People are actually not very mean, and people don't live too much in their worlds. So you can expect some kindness, but you can also expect, because of modernization, a little bit of strangeness. I don't know how to explain that, but you know, a little bit of abrasiveness, or people thinking, what do you want from me? Are you going to take something from me? There's a little bit of that kind of paranoia, but it's very, 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 very seldom that you would encounter something like that. And if you come with your accent, people will be like, whoa, there's someone we should worship, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but not in a bad way, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
but
just,
like,
it's the unknown.
It's so cool. Like, oh my God, you've got this accent. But there's also something that I'm seeing, in that people are becoming more proud of being African and being themselves. So there's this thing where people are like, well, why do I need to be impressed with someone that can speak English with a twang? I can also speak English, and I can speak this other language, and I can speak that other language, and I can do so many other things. I'm also awesome. And that's awesome to, you know, that's great to see.
Of course. And you know what? I do see that uprising even over here where like even the music, like a lot of like, West African, not South African,
Mm.
but West African music is very, very popular right now. There's Burna Boy and
Mm.
Davido and like all these people, they're just sweeping the globe. Like right now, like there was a stage where like the music that was popular, at least here in Canada, I can't speak for the States
Mm.
because, they've got their R&B, their hip hop, their, that whole thing. But here in
Yes.
Canada, it's very, the Black culture is very Caribbean influenced. And so
Oh.
the music would be like soca or like reggae or dancehall or something like that. But now there seems to be a strong influx of like West African music, and it's
Oh.
beautiful. And there's like people are just like, really connecting back with their roots. So it's not
Mm.
like to say like, oh, I'm Black. It's like, well, no, like I'm of African ancestry, like I'm African
Mm.
Canadian. Like, if
Mm.
you trace those steps back, I am West African, right? So
Mm.
but for slavery, of course. So
Yes.
yeah, it's
Oh,
really, really
wow.
interesting. Yeah, like I did an
Did you do
ancestry
one of
DNA.
those? Oh, yes. I was actually going to ask, did you do one of those tests? I've
Yeah,
been so curious.
yeah, we did. We did it. So it traced it back. Well, my family's from St. Vincent. My dad and my mom, they were born and raised. And then so it traced it back beyond them and beyond my great grandparents to like the fact that slave ships had left like Nigeria, specifically Benin, I think it was. Was
Mm-hmm.
it Benin? Yeah, Benin. And so like even it traced right back to like the tribe. So like the tribe was
Oh,
like the Igbo
wow.
people. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I was
wow.
like, that's really interesting. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, everybody's kind of like,
Mm.
an awakening, so to speak, of like who they really are. And I think it's gorgeous. I think it's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. Like, I think it would be great for the colored community in South Africa because it, would allow people to see like so much more of themselves than other people. Maybe there'd be less discrimination, and that's probably like just dreamer thinking. And but it would be interesting, like just to see it, because there's so many people, and I know I'm probably going to get chastised for this if someone sees this, but when I was growing up, I'd go to maybe a friend's house and I'd
Hmm.
see this picture of a white man on the wall, and I'd be like, "Whoa, who's that?" I'd be like, "No, that's my great grandfather." And I'd be like, "Oh, but you're colored, and that's a white person." Yeah, I'm guessing that's the one that started the whole thing. But I'm like, but where's the black granny or whatever
Yeah,
the other color granny was? Like, where's that person? Why
yeah,
why do we only get to see the white guy? Like
yeah,
it's pretty sad
yeah, it
that
is.
that people but it's good that we're growing out of that. I think even for instance with biracial people
Hmm.
tend to say half this half that, and I'm like, is it really half, or are you just 100% this and 100% the other thing? You're 100% of two things. Why can't you just enjoy both sides of everything?
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you have to choose one? Why does it have to be one?
Hmm.
you know it becomes so rich to be everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that speaks to the nuances of the situation because I think that like because the experiences of Black people across the globe is just so varied, even the term, and like I've done a lot of thinking and reading on this, even to collectively refer to ourselves as either colored or Black, right? I think that that's a problem because we're not a monolithic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like slavery even occurred and really like fragmented our communities, even prior to slavery. Like you're telling me about living in South Africa and having like over 11 like national like languages. Like that in and of itself, like those people who speak those 11 languages, they all have their own versions of culture and norms and like ways of communicating with each other. So if you can't even create like a monolithic for 11 languages in one country, how can you do that for the globe of Black people and say like, oh well, they're Black people? Because like
Exactly.
even this conversation right here, like you and I, we have some like, okay, yes, we're both brown skin, we're both like Black, right, or colored or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I don't know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a huge difference. Like I do have more in common with like my white neighbor in Canada than I would with
Mm-hmm.
you, but yet you and I would both be like, you're Black. And so what do we do to bridge that gap? Because what's happening, I find, is that we have been painted with like a monolithic brush, but at the
Yes.
same time we are not monolithic, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still trying to collectively come together with our shared experiences as
Mm-hmm.
Black people, so to use the term, right?
And
And
I
so
think that there's nothing wrong with acknowledging differences. I think that differences make us awesome. To ignore a difference or to treat a difference as strange, that is when it becomes odd, you know, like that's where it doesn't make sense anymore,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, I guess, to bring it back to natural hair, because
Yes.
the natural hair movement started, and all you would see on Instagram campaigns, influencers, etc., it would naturally flow towards lighter skinned naturals, even if they had type 4 hair. And then you'd be like, why is this happening? You know, there's this preference for lighter skinned naturals, or there's this preference for looser curls. Or, you know, people would come up to me in South Africa, because it's a very interesting place that we're at. My hair, because it's more similar to yours in its curl pattern, is not what people are accustomed to seeing in people who they presume to be black, you know. So somebody would come to me and say, hey, why does your hair look like that? What chemicals did you use? And then I'm sitting there like, do I have to speak about my ancestry now to explain the difference in texture?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, or do I just, you know, so I'd say, no, it's naturally like this. I would get fought. People would fight me like, no, it's not. What chemical are you using? Just tell me. And I'm like, I didn't use a chemical. I just used water. It just curls, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And eventually my cousin started saying, you tell them that you put horse urine in your hair.
Oh my God.
And see if they're willing to do that to change their curl pattern. You know?
Oh my gosh, that's a real thing, eh? Like the
Yes,
curl envy.
yes, curl envy. You know, so
Yeah.
I'd get people that also follow me, and they would say, "Wow, your wash and go is so great. How I can't do a wash and go." And I'm like, "Why can't you do a wash and go?" Then they say, "No, I mean, I can't do a wash and go because it never comes out right." And I'm like, "What are you expecting?"
What, like, yeah, like it's a wash and go is very unique experience, and like your wash and go will never look like somebody else's. It just won't.
Exactly. Because I mean, just like a fingerprint, all our hair is different. Well, I might be your hair sibling because our hair types and the way they look are so similar.
Yeah.
They're not exactly the same. They don't behave the same.
No.
You know, I might have a different porosity to yours, even though our curl texture or curl pattern is similar.
Yeah.
That influences which products work better. You know, so I think in South Africa, it's pretty cool to see now that people are becoming more aware of the different attributes to their hair, porosity, density, width, and obviously the curl pattern. So people are starting to even question, what is the significance of hair typing, of saying that I'm a 4C, I'm
Nothing.
a 4B? You know,
It
apart
doesn't
from knowing what kind of hairstyle would work best for you, maybe if you want to search, like, okay, if I do a perm rod set on 4C hair, would it come out well? Maybe you can see, but also take it with a pinch of salt, because what is that person's porosity? What is that person's regimen? What do they do? What do they eat? Are they on birth control? All these things influence a person's hair.
It's
you
true.
know, yeah. So I think we should all approach natural hair in a very nuanced way. Take what you can, use what you can, throw away what you can't.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about your journey, your hair, and I think that's what I'm trying to like reinforce with my page, with my blog, and with my soon-to-be vlog. You know, so I'm just trying to do this because it's more about accepting yourself. It's about accepting how your hair is, not wanting someone else's hair, not seeing that, but all the models have straight hair, or all the models have curly hair that's in ringlets instead of coils. You know, it would be great to see more representation, but we don't need representation to validate us. We need to validate ourselves.
Exactly. I love that. We need to validate ourselves. So Nojood, you do have a social media presence and you do have a brand. Can you tell us more about your brand?
This is such an interesting question. When I hear the brand, I'm just like, what does that mean? Am I a brand? What am I supposed to say?
Is that an American concept, like having a brand?
Not really. I mean, I remember when I was working at a specific company about 4 years ago, I picked up a lady and I said, hey, can you be my mentor? And then she said something like, you need to work on your personal brand. And I'm like, what on earth is my personal brand? Is it my integrity? Is it my personality? Is it my character? Is it like an unimplied, an unwritten CV or resume that I get to walk around with? You know, is it my reputation? What is the brand? You know? So I guess I don't really know how to answer that question because I'm not sure I still don't know. I just assume that if I carry myself well and act with integrity, then I guess that's my brand. But I think if I had to look at it in the microcosm of natural hair, um, I am a fine natural hair enthusiast and I appreciate all types of natural hair, whether you are white, whether you are black, whether
Yep.
you are whatever. You can have fine natural hair as whatever ethnicity. And I know that's such a wild concept for some people because they're like, but why would you include white people with natural hair? And I'm like, but because they have natural hair and they're trying to take care of it in the same way that we do.
Of
I met a
course.
colleague who was white who was using sheer moisture products. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. So yes, I do. That's my brand. I support all types of natural hair. I'm focused on fine natural hair because I have fine natural hair and there's not enough information on fine natural hair on the internet, and there's not enough, there aren't enough people to look at to see, oh, this is what I identify as, or this is what I need to do. And so that's why on Fridays, I started doing a fine fro Friday, where like scour the Instagram streets and look for fine natural hair beauties and just show them and say, listen, fine natural hair can look any which way. So I'm just trying to normalize fine natural hair. I've been in groups, on social media before I created my own page. I'd go in, there was a group called South African Naturals, and someone kept saying, what can I do to make my hair thick? What can I do to make my hair this? And it would always be because people had fine hair, or someone would come with fine hair and post their picture and be like, I love myself. And then somebody else would comment, oh, use XYZ to thicken your hair.
Wow.
As if there was something wrong. And then I'd just be in the comments defending people. There's nothing wrong with fine hair. Eventually, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to create my own page and I'm going to try and make fine natural hair normal because it is.
Yeah. It is normal.
So,
I agree with you. I love that. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think you and I connected how many years ago? Because like we do both have fine hair and we are both trying to normalize this thing. And I think that slowly but surely we're getting a little bit more people coming forward about what they have. I still think there are some quite popular people who probably do have fine hair, but they just haven't identified it as such. One that's popping to my mind like over and over again. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Her name is Kimmy Tube. I think she probably has fine hair. Like just seeing how she deals with her hair, seeing what it can and cannot do, it seems very much in alignment with what our hair can and cannot do. Not that anything's wrong with it, it's just that's the characteristics, right? And so I think that's really fantastic what you're doing. And that's why I have seen your spotlight features and you've been so gracious as to spotlight me a couple times now. Yeah, and I think we've worked together on some other things in the past as well, just because we are occupying this space together. But I think that the work you're doing is fantastic. How do you, in terms of your favorite products that you have access to in South Africa, what does that look like for you, Nojood?
So I was pretty obsessed with sheer moisture when they first came here. And even before they came here, I had to find like random sellers on the internet who would sell them at really expensive prices sometimes. And I just really wanted it because I needed something that had no silicones, that had no petrochemicals, because I just felt like I needed that. I need something like that. I don't know if my fine hair appreciates all these other things. I don't want moisture to not reach my cortex. And so I became so obsessed with sheer moisture, and I bought it into oblivion. We have a drugstore here called Clicks, and they were the first, I think, to start stocking sheer moisture products. And whenever they had a buy three pay for two, I would just go there and like spend all my money. And I still have like 3 drawers full of sheer moisture products. Yes, and I'm working my way through it. And now it's so weird because like I want to try new things as they launch, but I'm like, but I have stuff. And fortunately, most of the stuff doesn't go bad until you open it. So I'm just like, oh, thank God for that. I get to at least buy some of my stuff. I had to give some of my stuff away as well. Which was easy because I forgot how much money I spent on it. So I think that helped. I love Mayel Organics as well. Their Babasu oil
Stuff is fantastic.
conditioner, that's great. Like for a protein conditioner, it's quite I don't know, my hair feels hydrated afterwards. I think it's a light protein, or I don't know what it is, because
It's
it's
like a
got all these,
balance.
yeah, it's got all these amino acids in there. And I'm like, no, but this is protein, man.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It feels good.
Yeah,
Yeah, your hair just bounces back.
it feels great. And my hair just drinks it up, you know.
Yeah.
I've loved Obaya Naturals. I don't know if you've tried
Ooh,
those before.
never tried it,
Uh,
heard of it though.
yeah, I won a giveaway, and then I had to buy stuff, and then I saw shipping was like double what I, well, it was almost as
Ooh.
much as what the products that I wanted to buy cost, and I'm like, no, that's unreasonable. But
Yeah.
fortunately for me, one of my aunts who stays in the United States, she works for John Hopkins Hospital. She was actually, I said that because I can't remember what the area is.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like, you know what? Let me not guess.
Yeah,
The
so
Americans are gonna come for me. Let me not guess.
so she stays there and that area, and
Right.
so I was able to get my stuff delivered to her house, and then she came over to South Africa for a holiday and brought the stuff over for me to try, and I was like,
Mhm.
wow, thank you. I had actually approached her and said, listen, I am not going to America, and I'm not going to pay $40 for shipping, so can you
Yeah.
take this thing? Maybe you'd like the products. And instead she's like, no, but I'm coming through and I'll bring it. So yeah,
That
Abaya
was
Naturals,
nice.
I love their babasu. That's how I fell in love with babasu oil. You know, I even bought
Mm.
the raw form to use myself for other things. It works so
Wow.
well on skin. It works so well on so many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more absorbent or absorptive. I don't know what the correct word to use there
Mhm.
is. It
Absorbent.
absorbs quicker
Yep.
and better than coconut oil.
Yeah.
So people who have issues with coconut oil
Can use babassu.
can use babasu oil. Yeah, and I was thinking, what? Why don't I just start selling it also? So that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm considering, you know.
Right.
So yeah, Abaya Naturals, Mayal Organics.
Mhm.
There's a new brand in South Africa called Vana Naturals. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but yeah, Vana Naturals. It's also clean beauty, non-toxic.
Fantastic.
All the ingredients are like great, and it's fragrance free, hyperallergenic.
Right.
So you know you get to use these products and have a good conscience about it as well. You know, not only are they good for your hair, but they don't damage the planet while you're doing it,
Oh,
while you're
that's
using them.
fantastic. Yeah.
You know, and there's also another brand in South Africa called Nalani Ya Africa,
Ooh.
and that, yes, that it basically means the Horn of Africa, I think.
Oh,
And
lovely. Is it Ethiopian? Isn't
no,
that
no,
the
it's
Horn of
quite South
Africa?
African.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've heard the
yeah,
Horn of Africa being referred to as either Eritrea um
yeah, or Ethiopia.
or Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Somalia is
But it is
included there.
totally a South African product.
Yeah, so Nalani is a South African brand. Their co-wash
Lovely.
is amazing. You know,
Ooh.
I love that there are new South African brands popping up using not going the cheap route, because a lot of people launch a product and include all these silicones, and I'm like, that's just lazy formulating. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
why are you including silicones in products aimed for African hair? Like you
Mhm.
don't, especially natural hair. I understand putting silicones in something as a heat protectant or
For
something
sure.
like that,
You want to
but why
coat
would
the hair.
you? Yeah, I don't understand this. I don't understand a shampoo with silicones. I've never understood it. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, those are basically the brands that I like. And I know I didn't mention the individual products, but I've tried so many.
Yeah.
When I first went natural, Aunt Jackie's was the one that was more widely available in South Africa, and it still is. And fortunately now there are curly girl friendly variants that they have, you know, so
Mhm.
it caters to the wider market. I just like the fact that there's more of a choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had to go on individual products, I think we'd be talking until 10 p.m. my time, and I don't know what time your time. So
Yeah. You know, speaking of time, that kind of brings us to the end of this because you know, we did agree to about an hour, and so that's how long we usually run. But Jude, if you could leave us with a tip or a thought about you know, if we were to consider being natural in South Africa, like from a sociological perspective, from an emotional, personal, whatever perspective you want to give, like what tip would you give to someone who was trying to make that change?
sure, that is a very loaded question.
Sorry.
First of all, I would say what is the most important. And I know it sounds like a very odd thing or very far-fetched thing to say, but you need to be able to believe in yourself and believe that you are beautiful in the way that you are, and to expect nothing, especially if you've never seen your natural hair before. If you've been relaxing your hair your whole life, or you've been flat ironing it and not naturally seeing what it does, just expect nothing so that you can be surprised, so that you can say, wow, this is amazing. And also, understand that the first year of being natural, especially if you big chopped, or if maybe a big chop is better, but the first year, maybe if you transitioned, you might see a texture that you think is yours, but then it's not, and there will be people that come to you and try to detract from what you're trying to do. You don't need to believe them. You need to believe yourself, because at the end of the day, sometimes people are just projecting. There are times that people will come to you and say, why is your hair so untidy? And then 2 years later, they've gone natural and they're asking you for tips.
Right. I've seen those.
So,
Yeah.
in corporate spaces, just own it. Be yourself. Don't be that. If you want to be that person that goes to interviews with straight hair, and then well, not straight hair, but like maybe in a bun, and then once you get there on day one and you're in a wash and go, do it. Do whatever it takes to protect yourself and to protect your beauty, because it is beautiful. And just because the beauty that is celebrated in the mainstream does not look like you, does not mean yours is not real. So, I think if I have to end off with that, that's basically all that I have to say. You need to believe in yourself, believe in your own beauty. You need to be able to understand that you might fail, or not fail, but like you might run into some hiccups. You might have to start over sometimes. There's always something to learn, and all that matters is that you love yourself, you love your natural hair, and everything will fall into place, because everything that your hair, well, all that your hair needs is your commitment and love.
Yeah. Such wise words of wisdom, Nojood. I know we can find you on Instagram and Twitter. Where else can we find you for anybody
So
looking
I'm
to
going to
follow
be
you?
popping up on YouTube under the name A Naturally Fine Time with Nojood.
Okay.
As well as obviously on Twitter, I'm there. I'm at J triple O 0D, and on Facebook and Instagram, I'm Fine for a Natural, and my blog is Nojood the Nojood. So,
Lovely.
if anyone is looking for me, they can find me over there. And I'm very interactive, and I love to chat with people, and I like to solve problems. So I don't even ignore DMs or anything like that, because what's the point of being mean?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for all the Curlfriends out there, if you want to find Nojood, you weren't able to catch any of that, the links to all of those social medias will be down below. Nojood, thank you very, very much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming here, and this conversation was fantastic. It was eye-opening. I feel like I kind of had like a deep dive into South African culture as a natural, and we couldn't have done that without you. So that's it, Curlfriends. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
Bye.
me. Bye bye.